Hi, I'm Martin Jarvis, and once again I want to welcome you to another perspective. Truth. What is truth? We find all over the world there's a lot of bickering, and unfortunately that bickering evolves into wars, conflicts, hurt feelings, deaths, all kinds of stuff. We see our world embroiled in that stuff right now. It's interesting, the scripture tells us that there will always be wars and rumors of wars. Why is that? Because truth varies from individual to individual. It's always interesting, when you go to court and you're just sitting in the audience and you're watching the proceedings and you see the prosecutor get up and he lays out his entire theory on what actually happened, and you know the defendant is guilty without a shadow of a doubt. And then the defense attorney gets up and lays out his case, and all of a sudden you're not so sure anymore. Now you believe the defendant is innocent. And so you're stuck with this dilemma. What is truth? And so that's what we're going to talk about today, because it's one thing, and I've sat in courtrooms and watched the proceedings. I've even served on a jury before. And it is so interesting that it's easy to believe the individual is doing the talking at the moment. And then you make a decision, you render your particular determination based on the evidence that you've received, whether you're in the audience or you're on the jury. And then that's that. The individual has to pay the price. And unfortunately, and fortunately, you find the guilty sometimes go free, and the innocent sometimes found guilty, okay? And that's one thing when we're dealing with folks outside of ourselves, okay? But what I want to talk about today for this discussion is, how about when it comes to ourselves, our perceptions, our self-perceptions, and our perceptions of the goings-on around us. We want to talk about truth today. Because nobody wants to be on the wrong side, of truth. No one wants to embrace something that isn't correct. Most of the time when we argue or we debate, or we put all of our heart into a political candidate or something, we believe the individual is telling the truth. Okay. But it's interesting how Scripture talks about, most of our political folks, at least they were for many years, they were lawyers. And the Scriptures warn us about lawyers, and publicans. I don't think it says Republicans. It says publicans. Okay, sinners and all. Okay, but anyway, again, for our lives, for our particular lives, we want to find truth, because I'm convinced that our unhappiness, our dissatisfaction with life, is our inability to grasp a hold of what truth actually is. I think that we have a conscience. And often our conscious is more or our subconscious. How's that? Our subconscious is more free to embrace truth than our conscious. Okay. What I'm saying is we like to, for whatever reasons, sometimes emotional reasons, often maybe negative self-image, inferiority, weak perception of ourselves and all. We find ourselves affixing ourselves to groups and organizations that sort of give us a better feeling about ourselves, that I can identify with someone, I can identify with some people that help get the focus off of my weakness, okay? That's what our conscious mind, that's a path our conscious mind takes, and so we affiliate ourselves with these groups, okay? But then we have this subconscious mind, or the conscience, that knows better, and oftentimes we're in our lives, we're sort of in a turmoil because we're being divided by our conscious desires and our subconsciousness, or our conscience, okay? And we're not happy, and we struggle, and what we find is that most of our relationships that would be healthy are strained, they're stressed. Because not only are we trying to relate to folks that are in our lives, like our family members, our friends, our co-workers, or whatever, But at the same time, we're dealing with this internal turmoil, this battle between our conscious desires and our subconscious realities, okay? And this goes so far down the rabbit hole because sometimes our subconscious or even our conscience realities, may be skewed as well depending on what kind of environment, what kind of influences we came up in. Dealing with someone else's issues, like our parents, the environment we came up in, or even like racial issues, which we see a lot of in this nation and in many other nations as well, or religious, persecution, or whatever kind of issues we go through. Sometimes even our deepest subconscious thoughts are skewed, okay? So I guess the point I'm making is that most of us are functioning in life unhappy, not feeling fulfilled. And so what I'm suggesting is that it revolves around our concept, our belief in what truth is, okay? And what I'm suggesting as well is that we have affixed ourselves consciously to certain things that we believe are true, okay? Whether it's the difference between being a believer and being an atheist, both have affixed themselves to a particular truth. But what I'm suggesting is that we are not so much happy and satisfied. You can go through the churches and begin to interview and look at the lives of the believers, and you'll find that folks just are not happy. But then you can go to the atheists, who have affixed themselves to that way of thinking, and you can find they're not happy either. There's a lot of drug abuse. There's a lot of alcohol use. There's a lot of sort of things being utilized to mask the emptiness, okay? And so this really isn't a religious message. This isn't a message that debates the difference between God and no God, or religion and no religion, or spirituality and no reality. This is simply a message that speaks to truth. What is truth? We find that monumental question in Scripture. One verse of Scripture, and it's John the 8th verse, 32nd, the 8th chapter, the 32nd verse. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. It's the truth that will make you free. So then let's talk about truth. Very rarely are we moved anymore by truth. It seemed, as a young child growing up, that was the desire of every young child, As you begin to speak, as you begin to drive your parents nuts, it's asking why this, why that, why? Because we have an insatiable desire to understand, to know, to understand truth. But somewhere along the way, we begin to pump our brakes. We begin to slow down and are not so inquisitive about truth because we have determined that we already know what truth is, okay? That's where you find the person in the church that is, you can't convince me of anything, I already know. Even though what they're being called is a believer because of their belief. It's not a knower because of what they know. It's a belief. Beliefs are evolving, okay? Beliefs should be evolving. Whatever we believe in life, they should be evolving. As we walk this walk, as we walk the path, as we begin to see this and see that, we should be evolving. What we think we know now, what we believe now, should increase or decrease. We're given to understand that Jesus was asked, why do you tell the people all these stories that they can't possibly understand? His response, because they can't grasp the truth, okay? And just like your kid, as my kids, they're coming up and you're sharing with them as they're 3 years old and 4 years old and 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 30 years old. Incrementally along their life, you're able to increase. You're able to give more insight, understanding about life simply because prior to that, they were not able to grasp what it is you would like to have told them. They didn't have the ability, the capacity to understand. And so you hope that your child isn't sitting there as a 20-year-old believing that everything they learned up until they were 13 was the truth and there is nothing else. There has to be an evolution. I think we can understand that. But as believers and even atheists, we believe what we believe, and there's nothing that can convince us. And so then we look at the atheists. We have the gentleman that believes, or the woman that believes that there is no God. There can be no God. It just doesn't make sense scientifically. You haven't proved it. The onus is on you to prove it to me, and all that kind of stuff. I was one of those guys. I wasn't a harsh atheist, though. And I was always, even as an atheist for those 10 years, I was always wise enough or logical enough to understand that although I knew there was no God, I could be wrong. That's logic. We all could be wrong. Okay? So anytime you take yourself to a point where you're going to shut yourself off from any possibility of having your truth challenged, you're stagnating. So most of us are sitting in that situation, whatever lot of thought, whatever thought that we are in our lives, whatever we think, whatever our theism is or our atheism is, we just believe what we believe and that's it. That ain't me. I've never been that way. It just doesn't make sense. And I think that's why, even though I knew there was no God, I was still open enough, pliable enough to have that epiphany, that cold January morning, because my mind wasn't shut. I knew there was no God, but I could be wrong. See, I think that what the atheist has come up with, the onus is on you to prove to me. No, it isn't. The onus is on God. I would tell those kids all the time, challenge God, say, if you're really there, let me throw this ball to you. You make the shot, And it's this truth that we need. We need the truth. Jesus said the truth will make you free. Now, who is he speaking to? Why do we still quote that verse today, or we should be quoting that verse today? How does it apply to our lives? The truth will make us, I'm already free. Well, maybe you're not. If you're not evolving, you are not free. A stagnant pond of water is water, but it's stagnant. It's not moving. It's not evolving. And the evolution of that lake, the evolution of that river, the evolution of it is that it is purifying itself in its movement. Okay. And as that, say it's the river, a rushing river, coming through, constantly flowing. There is wear. There is wear being waged against the river bed, against the river's edges, okay, against everything that is in the path of the river, even underneath everything. And so the river, the path of the river itself is ever evolving, simply because the water is moving. It's changing. You're not going to find a river where the water is moving, the water is flowing, that any second, at between, say, 5 seconds or so, that river has changed. You may not be able to visibly tell while you're looking, but that river never remains the same. The riverbed never remains the same. The wood and the pebbles and the dirt and even the life that's even within the river is always being affected by that flowing water. And so it always evolves, it always grows, it always changes. A stagnant river? Nothing. That's how many of us are in our minds and our lives, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but that's why we're not really happy. That's why even in the church we're not really happy. That's why people outside of the church or out in the world of the atheists, wanting to have weed legalized, drinking alcohol, getting that buzz. Come on now, why? Because there is an unhappiness which is only created when we are ingesting a pseudo buzz into our lives. Oh, I'm happy now. Why is that? The truth, the evolution of life, the reality of change throughout our lives is a wonderful thing. And it's the way we were built to be from the moment we are conceived inside of our mothers. We begin going through changes, going through metamorphosis. Our truths are constantly being challenged. The antithesis. That fetus is never the same. From the moment it comes into whatever we want to call that type of life, from that moment it's always changing, it's always growing, it's always evolving. Even to the point where pops out of the mommy one day and becomes that little baby and then continually grows. We never stop evolving. We should take note from the natural responses, the natural reactions our lives have even on this planet, the evolution of life. We have to open our minds like that because life doesn't stop. This is where we come into that little conflict again between our subconscious and our conscious because we're so stalwart and so determined that this is the truth. While at the same time it's growing, it's growing, it's growing. It's almost like you have a balloon or something that you've tied the end to, yet still water is being pumped in, water is being pumped in, and eventually it's going to pop. Could have gone with the flow. So I'm just suggesting is we need to be pliable. Look to evolve. Look to evolve. We are spiritual. Now, I think that wherever you are religiously or not religiously at all, we should be able to acknowledge that we are spiritual. Now defining spiritual, that might vary along, but I'm saying even as an atheist, when you close your eyes and you dream, what is that? That is something outside of you, okay? That is the spirituality. And so what I'm suggesting is today we need to recognize dreams, okay? We need to recognize the dreams in our lives and try to understand what it is actually that they mean. There are two types of dreams, okay, that we're going to talk about for a moment. There are the aspirations, those dreams that we have from a conscious perspective, the things that I want to do, the things that I want to accomplish in life. And there are, the dreams that we have when we are asleep in that sort of subconscious or less than conscious realm, okay? So those are the dreams, the aspirations when we're awake, and those dreams that we have when we're asleep. What I want to describe them as is then the aspirational dream. When we're awake, those are dreams that then even in our conscious or our awake state, we are reaching outside of who we are in a desire to be something great, a desire to achieve or to attain something greater than we are. We are reaching out. That's what an aspiration is, reaching out from where you are to acquire something else, okay? And so we set our sights on it. And we do what we need to do, whether it's education, whether it's exercise, whether it's health, whether it's relationship, family. We recognize a goal, an aspiration, and we do what it takes to get there. And so the other kind of dream, again, is when you're asleep. And what I'm suggesting is that is your subconscious. It's doing the same reaching out. There is a desire for something, and this is your subconscious reaching out. Often we turn off our subconscious when we are so stalwart and so determined on this is what life is, this is whatever truth is, this is what I want. And we don't hear anything else, and our subconscious is often smarter, more smarter than we are. Is reaching out for something different, reaching out for something different from within the subconscious realm. Sort of trying to communicate a particular truth that we are not conscious to hear, okay? And we need to recognize that. And what I would suggest today is that's very important is that it is important, okay, when you're conscious, when you're thinking, and you're having these aspirations, if you are drunk or if you are high, you can't really trust those aspirations, okay? That's why, if you're drunk on the job, you're probably going to get fired if you get caught because your employer knows you're not going to be thinking properly. You're not going to be making right decisions. You're going to be screwing up. And you're going to be thinking you're all right, but you're not going to be all right. So your aspirations that are based on a mind that has a buzz cannot be trusted, okay? And by the same kind of the same idea is those dreams you're having when you're asleep, the reaching out. If your body is not healthy, your body has needs to function properly. Whether it's exercise, whether it's food, whether it's sleep, all these things that we need. So what I'm suggesting is if we want to be able to trust those subconscious reaching out, the dreams that we have to make sure that the vehicle, the conduit for those dreams is healthy. Okay? And that's as far as taking care of ourselves. And so a healthy individual has dreams when they're asleep, and a healthy individual has dreams when they're awake. And these are evolving. That's how you know they're not stagnant. Sometimes we just, there's a problem, with just, with the drug thing. I mean, I've been there with the drugs and the alcohol and all that, and the lifestyle that you could just get into that is not really expanding. It's just every day, just can't wait to get home to get that buzz, and all that stuff. Not really evolving. Stagnation. That's the truth that doesn't move you. That's the truth that folks get satisfied in. That's apathetic truth. Kind of knowing something's wrong, but without the energy to make it right. And that's where too many of us are today. And so I'm suggesting then that we need to recognize that we need to be evolving. We need to be expanding. If you believe today what you believed 10 years ago, there's something wrong. You haven't grown. Accept the challenge. That's growth. And that's what I'm suggesting today. The key to satisfaction, the key to fulfillment is the ability to aspire, the ability to dream, awake and asleep. But unless we are healthy vehicles for those aspirations, they can't be trusted. And oftentimes we just pull back in our shell and just maintain the status quo. Don't do that. There is happiness. There is peace. But it takes you. It takes something that you're supposed to do. We had so for so many years, especially around the 70s or so, with the motivational speakers, the idea of self-affirmation. And self-affirmation is a wonderful thing to keep yourself from being down on yourselves. But self-affirmation can also be a lie. Self-affirmation can be a lie that will not get you anywhere. See, the key is not to simply look in the mirror every morning and tell yourself how wonderful you are and how wonderful you look. What if you're not wonderful? What if you don't look good? This self-affirmation every morning is simply going to keep you stagnant, keep you in a place where you're not going to improve because you've embraced something outside of aspirations. There are no aspirations if you're totally and continuously satisfied and affirming who you are right now. Now the reality is when you look in the mirror, the purpose of the mirror is to recognize, to see, to understand the things that you need to fix. And then begin affirming yourself even for what you don't see as you are in the process of fixing what you do see. Okay? That's what I'm suggesting. Don't be satisfied with the status quo. Because when I tell you don't be satisfied, because the reality is you might convince yourself that you are satisfied, but you're not satisfied. You're supposed to be improving. You're supposed to be growing. You're supposed to be evolving. And I'm a believer. I came into this thing as an atheist. One night I couldn't sleep. I had an epiphany. I was 28 then. I'll be 64 this year. That was it. But that wasn't it. There has been an evolution. There was a study. There was a walk. There was a path. Always be evolving. Consider your money situation. Begin fixing your money situation. Begin fixing your health. Begin eating right. Begin exercising. At 50 years old, I decided to go to school to get an associate degree. 10 years later, I earned an MBA. At 60 years old. 63 years old, I got my scuba certification. And now I'm still exercising, I'm still eating right, I'm still opening my mind up, I'm still studying, reading things, trying to understand, evolving. Don't be satisfied with the status quo. There's a scripture, a verse of scripture that shares how a master went away to a faraway land and took 3 of his servants and gave them money. Scripture calls them talents. Gave one 10 talents, another 5 talents, another 1 talent, based on their abilities, And when he left, the man with 10 talents invested what he had and he doubled what he had. The man that had been given 5 talents invested what he had and he had doubled what he had. The man that had given 1, he buried that talent. So when the master came back, the first guy came to the master and said, look, you gave me 10, I have 20 for you. Here's your 20 talents. When he had given 5 to, he says, I've doubled this. Look, I have 10 talents. Here's your 10 talents. But when he gave 1 talent to, said, you know, I know you're a hard man. So I just buried the talent you gave me, and now here it is, that 1 talent you gave me. The master was angry at that one because he had done nothing with what he had been given. Now all of us, we come to this planet, none of us are born with this, most of us are not born with that silver spoon in our mouth. Most of us aren't born into wealth, you know, like some of those people we watch on TV and all. But we've all been given something. We've all been given something. So the question is, as the master came back to those 3, what have you done with what you've been given? What is the most precious gift that you've been given? You. And how do you evolve that which is you? How did the man with the 10 talents evolve that which he had? Because he had aspirations. He had thoughts. He had desires. What can I do with this? The same with the man with 5. But that man with none, he had no aspiration. He had no dreams. There was nothing in him that moved him to take what he had been given and to make more of it. What I'm suggesting to you is your life, my life. These are the most precious gifts that we have been given. What have we done with what we've been given? See, I'm afraid the weed. I'm afraid the alcohol. I'm afraid so many habits, so many things. Man, the other day I walked into this place. I didn't know what it was. It was like a gambling place, I guess, with games in there that people were just sitting there playing over and over again. I'm looking at these people, they're just sitting there. They don't even look happy. They're just, I guess, putting money in. They're just playing and playing, expecting to win. But none of them looked happy because they weren't evolving. That was the reality of their life. What I'm telling you is you need to just, I'm suggesting we all need to just recognize that there is more. There is something, no matter where we are in life, no matter how old, no matter how out of shape, no matter how many doors have been closed in our lives, there's something out there for you. Don't be satisfied. Seek and you'll find. And what I'm suggesting is the truth will make you free. Just like Jesus, the truth will make you free. How's that? Well, kick that around a little bit. I believe there's something out there for you. You might have said, oh, no, my life is over. I'm telling you, man, I didn't go to school till I was 50. I earned my MBA when I was 60, but I mean even incrementally along the way. First I earned my associate degree, then I earned my bachelor's degree, then I earned my MBA. So that gives you a picture of the evolution. And what's important, even about this education, I want to give this to you to run this last point home, is when I decided to go to school to get the associate degree at Sinclair College, I wasn't thinking about getting a bachelor's degree. All I was considering was getting this associate degree. That was my all in all. I don't remember how many classes, 18, I don't know how many classes I had to take. There were a bunch of them. And all I was focused on was getting that associate degree. But once I got to the associate degree, it was like there was an evolution of thought. Now I'm going to get a bachelor's degree. And that was going to be it. Now I'm going to get a bachelor's degree. So I just went for a couple of years. That's all I'm doing is I'm just going to get a bachelor's degree and then I'm going to be done. But then when I got to that bachelor's degree and graduated, all of a sudden it opened up again. I'm going to go for the MBA. That's the evolution. Evolution. Just keep that. Don't let your river become stagnant. Keep evolving. Keep reaching aspirations, desires. Not long after that, I'm writing books. I'm still doing these programs. I'm an example to my children. My worldview has expanded so much. You know, I never realized that even before I had any kind of education outside of high school, well, people just go to college and, you know, like it didn't really mean all that much. But it means a whole lot. Because that is part of the evolution. As your worldview begins to expand, your aspirations, you begin to reach out further and further. And so I'm just sharing that with you. There's so much. There's so much more. And I could just put a period after that because there's so much more for all of us. Kick that around. How's that? Well, anyway, I do want to thank you once again for joining me for another perspective. And I want to leave you this one tidbit, just so you know, that no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what you've done or what you're doing right now, that God truly, truly loves you. He really does. And so do I.